Benners, 8:37 now, and a protected giant redwood tree in Swansea, which was mistakenly cut down by a property developer last month, could have been one of the first ever planted in the UK. Documents suggest giant redwoods were first planted on the former Penllergaer estate in 1842, more than a decade before its seeds are thought to have first arrived in Britain. Neil Jones from Swansea Friends of the Earth explained the significance of the tree.
It was an enormous tree. It towered above everything else in the neighbourhood. It's been listed as what we call, I believe, as what we call a heritage tree, which is obviously one of very great significance. You don't get trees like this everywhere. Simply there aren't any old enough in Britain of this kind to be that big.
Well, the developer Enzo's Home said the tree had been felled by mistake after it wasn't marked up correctly. An investigation into the incident is continuing. Rob McBride is the founder-director of TREEspect, which campaigns to protect trees. Good morning, Rob.
Good morning, Rachel. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Tell us how you've got involved in this.
TREEspect have been involved through my partner Sean, who had a very sore throat this morning. We're investigating the exact circumstances of how this, in quotes, accident happened, and I guess due process will take its course through Swansea Council, because this was a TPO, the Tree Preservation Order tree, so it did have legal protection.
What does that mean, though, if it's been felled? I mean, the developer says by mistake. I mean, it's a sad loss, but there's not much that can be done now, is there?
Well, we certainly can't re-erect it, but I think in this situation, let's hope that Swansea City Council use the full weight of the law. A mistake, many people make mistakes that are illegal, and they go to jail, they get fined. So I don't think saying it was a mistake perhaps is much of a defence, but we will see. That's for the legal people to do. As regards the tree and the history, I've just come off the phone from a chap in Brussels, a tree professor who's a world expert on sequoias. He has been telling me the history. His website is called sequoias.eu. People can get a lot of information off that. They were brought into the country. Now, the chap one thing I do have to stress is there are two types of sequoia. There are the coast redwood, which were the first trees found. So they are a sequoia that were on the coast, by the name implies, by the Spanish in 1769. And they crossed up to Palo Alto from their expeditions. In the 1850s, a chap called Dowd and his friends found these trees, the one that was cut down, the giant redwoods, as they're called, the Sequoiadendron gigantium, if you like. And they told people about them. They weren't believed. They were actually on a bear hunt at the time. It was gold rush time. But people did not believe the size of these trees. And the only way he got them to go up there, a journalist to go up there, was to tell them about there was gold up in the hills. So the journalists went up there, and from that, the seeds were brought in around 1853, 54. But my sequoia expert tells me that seeds for the coast redwood may have been in Russia in 1841. So there is a possibility that perhaps the diary refers to a coast redwood that was planted. But this tree is certainly, I'm not doing this tree down, this is certainly a very significant heritage tree.
And how big would it be? I mean, it must have been huge if it was, that old.
The one in the UK, obviously the ones in the UK, they're only 160-ish around there. My math is something like that, correct? They're fantastic size. And in fact, Wales has got one of the largest groves of sequoias in Europe, in Leighton, the Royal Forestry Society there. Again, they're coast redwoods. I photographed some of these trees. Some of these are 8 meters plus around, larger than that. But certainly the ones that they found initially in the mountains of California was 30 meters around. And the one called the Discovery that was cut down, the first one they cut down, was large enough that they had a ballroom. They made a ballroom for dancing on top of it. Can you imagine doing that now?
No. So this tree we can't anticipate the outcome of the investigation in this case, but do you think that the penalties in place for this type of thing are strong enough?
Oh, no. I've been campaigning as myself, the tree hunter, TREEspect now, a campaign, organisations like Coed in Wales as well, the Woodland Trust. We're all campaigning the Ancient Tree Forum to get and I've had private meetings, if you like, at the Oak at the Gate of the Dead with Hannah Blithen. AMs, many AMs have promised to do. Essentially, I know we've got significant problems that are going on in the country at the moment, but a lot of people now believe that ancient trees, it's just what you would call a no-brainer, that the truly ancient trees and the true heritage trees, let's say the top 50 to start with in Wales, they should have the same protection as that bus stop in London that's got Grade 1 listed building or something like this. It's just ridiculous, and it's time that the politicians, I hope they're listening this morning, Ken Skates, Russell George, and William Powell, when he was an AM, he was fantastic. He saved the Brimon Oak along with myself and Mervyn Lloyd-Jones. William Powell did a lot. He was an action man. And these other AMs now need to get together and take Wales into the lead in this. We were ahead about 8 years ago. Wales was ahead in the quest for protection, but we're not at the moment.
How do you put a value on a tree like this, Rob?
Well, it's funny. We do like to put monetary values on this, and certainly the inventor of a system called CAVAT, Chris Nealon, a friend of mine, again a tree professor as I call them, he has estimated from the details he's had of this tree was given around about £212,000 worth of value, CAVAT value, and it's like a Grade 2 heritage listed building, but it's a natural feature, as you know, and it's giving out. Trees do so much for us. I almost don't need to explain what trees do for us in terms of flood alleviation, oxygen, amenity value, aesthetic, mental health benefits, forest bathing. This is going to be a thing next year with the 100th anniversary of the Forestry Commission. People, they need to understand that we're not lunatic tree huggers. We are sensible people who are trying to get across to as many people as we can, and I appreciate your programme doing this feature this morning.
Thanks very much for joining us on the programme, Rob. That's Rob McBride from TREEspect.
Two very important bits of information now.